Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the battle of the early access games. Did that sound showman enough? What's up, people? It's your boy Jatwa, and I'm here today, and we're going to go into two different games. And in today's bout, we have in one corner the successor to the crown of aerospace and space, and it is currently in early access and receiving updates monthly. It has its share of ups and downs, but development continues. Kerbal Space Program 2. And in the other corner, we have the up-and-coming star of procedural generation, one that has been quietly building its strength and adding more innovative features that have yet to be seen in many aerospace games. A game that has settings that even the venerable Kerbal Space Program 1 did not, and that game's name is Flyout. So let's go over the tales of the tape. So for the team layout, Kerbal Space Program 2 is being developed by Intercept Games. It has a larger development team and has the help of the legendary KSP 1 team squad, and it has also been able to hire from the modding community, bringing in quite the amount of talent into the development of the game. Flyout is being developed by Stone EXT Games, which happens to be one very talented individual. So, let's go over the current features. KSP2 currently has flight, orbital mechanics, space flight, physics, a little problematic sometimes, especially on water, and landing on most planets and moons. Jool is not quite landable-ish. I mean, there's ways to do it, but anyhow, moving on. For Flyout, you have flight, mostly modifiable parts, a huge number of variables and settings that you can tweak and set, and weapons. And like I mentioned before, an amazing amount of customizable parts due to its embracing of procedural generation. For the roadmap, KSP2 has a nice solid roadmap being displayed at the moment, and it has science, colonies and orbital building, interstellar travel with an additional planetary system, exploration, and additional resource management, as well as co-op. These are things in the distant future and just about in that exact order, if I remember correctly, for their roadmap. Flyout has an unofficial roadmap. It has a list of things that, they have been accepted, and things that are not currently in the game, and things unlikely to be in the game. So we're going to go over the things that are not currently in the game. So they have some additional engines, VTOL systems, water physics, undo and redo, which, that is there in KSP2, AI dogfighting, but no PvP. It's not planned at the moment. And co-op and small-scale multiplayer. Again, we're not talking player versus player, as well as tutorials, because with the amount of parts there and settings, you need a tutorial. So let's check out the level of difficulty. So this is key, because if people can't get into your game because they don't understand it, this is key. So, basic aircraft designs for KSP2 can be extremely easy. They have a nice center of mass, center of lift, center of thrust, which is mostly accurate and can let you design an aircraft really quickly and take off. Rocket designs can be simple to very difficult depending on how far you are going, because those tanks that you need to add on, sometimes the joints don't hold together, and oftentimes you will run into a bit of wobble with your aircraft. Well, your aircraft and your rockets, which is something that can be very problematic. Long-range interplanetary designs can be problematic due to some bugs, mainly the wobble and, of course, the previously mentioned parts falling off because the joints. And then there is the issue of going interplanetary. There are a few bugs with the nodes, and you need to learn how to do the transfer windows and handle your maneuver planner manipulator. Those things I just mentioned can be very difficult at times. They can be very easy. If you're just going to the moon or Minmus, then, or Mun, and min-miss, it can be very easy. If you're just going to doing once again, very easy. But once you start to get outside of things, it can be problematic. I have had times where my manipulator, my node just wasn't accurate, and it would do, my landing was now thrown off, or my window was now incorrect because I time warped and things went horribly wrong for some reason. I've ended up underneath the surface of the moon before as well, which was very curious. For Flyout, for the level of difficulty, building a basic plane can be pretty simple once you understand how the parts connect, because you don't have the same snap nodes that you do in Kerbal Space Program and Kerbal Space Program 2. If you end up holding the axis that you want to snap to, like X, Z, or Y, it will connect to that node, to that axis node. But you can actually use multiple at the same time. So if you want to do all three, you can. So just keep in mind, if you haven't tried it, try it, and then you can offset if needed. For tweakers, there are so many settings for things. Engines have a ton of settings, your tanks have a ton of settings, your intake, things have settings that I would not have thought should have settings, because I've never had to deal with them in Kerbal Space Program 1 and 2. This is a good and a bad thing, because it lets you have so many customizable things, but at the same time, it can be a bit daunting if you're not super familiar with those things, which I am not super familiar with them. So it ends up taking me quite some time, because I love to tweak things. For veteran KSP 1 and 2 players, you will find that there is quite a bit of familiarity in the designing of your aircraft. There are a few things missing. You can't see your center of pressure or lift in the building scene, so you kind of have to guesstimate, and then you can adjust your craft in flight by holding X and then pressing whatever direction you need to adjust in. And then there is no floor in the build scene, so you can't quite get your wheels to be level. There is no undo and redo, even though it is planned. And there is no nice and fluid keyboard, keystroke, copy and paste, key mappings by default. So there's some nitpicks, but these are things that really streamline the build process. And of course, there is the limit of low space only. Interplanetary is not a concern, so you don't have to worry about a lot of those interplanetary delta V calculations and a lot of those transfer windows that you do have to worry about in Kerbal Space Program if you happen to be going into space. As far as modding goes, both games have modding, but there is not very much as far as official modding occurring right now. There is some modding going on for Kerbal Space Program 2, but the official method has not been made available quite yet. Pros and cons. So let's go over the pros and cons of both games. So for KSP2, let's go over the pros. It has a comprehensive parts manager, even though it's a little buggy and laggy at times, that allows the configurations of components on the craft in one solid window, which is really nice. Once they get that to be performant and working really well, it's going to be really nice to have all in one window and to just select what you want. It does the same with this action groups manager. It's really well done. It just needs to be more performant. The KSP2 has a very, very active community, which, yes, I am a part of. I'm a part of both communities. You will find a lot of help. I've had a lot of people asking, am I going to bring my mods over to KSP2? I probably will, because it's pretty easy to go from 1 to 2. I just have to find time, and I have been actually waiting for the official method. There is a detailed roadmap. There is bug reporting and tracking. There is a quite sizely team now that is supporting the game. And it does have wing procedural generation, which is really nice. And in the future, of course, they are planning things like multiplayer, additional planetary systems, resource management, and things of the like. So there is quite the future for KSP2. Once things get buckled down and we get a lot more updates, we'll start to see the game performing a lot better. There was a big kerfluffle with, the performance of the game and the requirements, but that seems to have calmed down a bit. The FPS is gotten a lot better in the game, so I'm really hoping that it continues to follow this path. Some of the cons, right now the game is a bit pricey for an early access game at $50. There are a ton of bugs, but the game has been recently released into early access. There's a bit of a kerfluffle, I like to say kerfluffle, with some people because they feel like the game should have been further on than it currently is, but you have to start somewhere. For me, I just accept it as it is. Let's just go forward, and eventually we'll have the game that we want. But right now, since it's early access, there's a lot of systems that are not currently implemented, and there are many parts that are also not implemented that are available in KSP1. Another one of the cons for KSP2 is that KSP1 is really just that good. Let's be honest. There's a lot of modding, a lot of modders, and they can get the game to look extremely good for KSP1. So that is kind of a pro and a con for KSP2. It has some really big shoes to fill, but it has a really good platform that it can build up from. For Flyout, some of the pros in the game is there is actually a stealth calculator and a stealth implementation, so you can actually see how stealthy your design could be, and that's really awesome. There are many more settings for craft tweaking. You can go in there and you can adjust a lot of things down to a gearbox. That's pretty amazing how each and every small detail can actually come together and make that much of a difference. There is also a lot of procedural generation for the fuselage and wings. Those are the two main things. You can literally go and take a fuselage and make that into a really custom cockpit, and it's so beautiful when you actually get it to work, because I'm not very good at it. When I finally understood how to do it, it is amazing, and it's just like you're designing in Blender after some point, and it's really well done. And I hope to see more games embrace the procedural generation that Flyout has been able to accomplish. There is low space but no orbital mechanics, so you're not going to be going out there and transferring to the moon. You're not going to be doing moon landings or anything else. The most you can do is low space. So that can be a pro for those that don't care about going to space. They just want to build airplanes. But also it's a con for those that do. And there is currently weapons, and they plan some AI combat, co-op, and multiplayer, but again, no PvP is currently on the list. So that can be a pro and a con to others. There are some nice, beautiful weapons and guns in the game, and some people would really want to use that on other people. So I can understand. Maybe that'll end up coming in as a mod, maybe not, we'll have to see. There are a lot of settings to tweak in the crafts if you really want to get into the weeds, and currently there's no tutorials on how those work, but you can always join their Discord, and there are plenty of people willing to help you out get that sorted. Not all the parts can be modified in the same way, again, as a con. There are some that use sliders, some that use text entry, some that use procedural generation. I would love to see procedural generation done for all the parts, and I would also love to see text entry as well as sliders. Sometimes it works better with certain things as a slider. Sometimes you just want the text entry. Sometimes you just want to grab a node and adjust things using procedural generation for every last single part. And then, when you go in there, it has a really beautiful option in there. Let me just mention this. This is certainly a pro. There is a feature in there for procedural generation where you can copy and paste that shape. And so as you're going through and adding in additional loops, it can then paste that shape in. And it just gives you so much more ability to customize your craft in a fluid and logical fashion, just by a copy paste feature that seems really simple but is extremely powerful. And I would think it definitely needs that consistency. Without having that consistency in there for each part, you have to go in there and figure out, okay, is this a slider? Is this do I just stretch this using the offset, or how do we do this? And then, of course, low space and no orbital mechanics. Sometimes I just want to make a space plane. I just take an F-15, modify it, and now I'm going to space with it. Is that realistic? No. Is it cool? Heck yeah! I've made an A-10 go to orbit. I've built a craft that used guns and got into orbit, and then went to the moon in KSP1. So those things can happen. And I mean, also as another con for Flyout, I would love to see some type of torque system, kind of like they have as SAS in Kerbal Space Program 1 and 2, because that allows you to really generate some lightweight crafts and use something kind of like a gyroscope to have that balance. So those are some things I would love to see. I would love to be able to mod one in myself if I had the ability and the knowledge, but I can't. So that's kind of the tail of the tape for the two games. I wish I had the price for Flyout. It's currently not available on Steam just yet, but I have access to it, so I have been playing it, and I've been having a blast in the game, designing aircraft. It certainly allows you to be a lot more creative with the designs, since it has that really customizable procedural generation, and it just throws so many potential designs at you. It's really cool. But for now, I'm gonna get on out of here. As for which game you should buy, realistically, I would say both. Because, I mean, if you really want to get into the weeds, if you really want to get into custom design, if you really want to get down and dirty into the craft design, then Flyout is going to be your game. It lets you do so much with that procedural generation, and you can really make a beautiful custom cockpit that will allow you to have a one-to-one replica of the craft that you're trying to design. And it has propellers, so all that, gearboxes and whatnot, there's so much in there that you can tweak that allows you to make one-to-one replicas just absolutely fantastically. And as for KSP2, if you want to go to space, there's no better game, to be honest. So in my opinion, I would get both. I currently have both, so I definitely would suggest it. It's really cool once you get the hang of both of them. Once it comes out, we'll be able to see what the actual price is going to be for Flyout, and I really wish both teams the best in their endeavors, and I will continue coverage of both. Kerbal Space Program 2 currently has a new patch coming out, and hopefully we'll see a lot more performance and a lot of these bugs being quashed going forward, and we will see what the next update brings for Flyout. I don't know when that one is. I'll have to go over there and check the dev stuff and see what they have planned. But if you do want to join both, there is a Flyout Discord and of course a KSP2 Discord. I highly suggest jumping in both, taking a look around, seeing which community, how you want to get involved in those communities. Do you want to end up being a modder? Do you just want to go in there and discuss the game flow, performance, and kind of try to help shape these games as they're going forward? But for now, I'm gonna get on out of here. This has been your boy Joshua, and I'm out. Peace. And as for my favorite game of all time, hands down, that's going to be KSP 1, because, well, I have a lot of time in that game. I have way too much time in that game.